Okay, so yeah, today I'm going to talk about the power of macros in Dart. I actually had a talk yesterday with one of my colleagues, Elian, talking about offline first. This is a different talk. I think that, we're going to deep dive right now. But yeah, just before starting, I wanted to know like how many of you guys have tried so far macros in Dart, because it's a new feature, right? So maybe if you can raise your hands. Okay, so only a few of you guys, so two. And between you two, like, have you used it in terms of importing a macro, or like you have created a macro? Both? Okay, nice. Right, perfect. Okay, so before start, I want to introduce myself. I already introduced yesterday, but yeah, I'm Gianfranco Baba. I'm CTO and co-founder at Somnia Software. Somnia Software is like a dev shop specialized in Flutter. We provide services to our clients around the globe, and we basically make some web and mobile applications. Of course, always in Flutter. So I'm also a Google developer expert for Dart and Flutter. I'm a software engineer. I have a computer science degree, and I consider myself like my areas of expertise is Flutter. So I'm a Flutter developer and a mentor. I'm also a speaker, and I'm organizer of Flutter Montevideo meetup, where I live in Uruguay. So yeah, enough about me. This is the agenda for today. Basically, we're going to talk about macros, the new feature in Dart that is not completely released, but we are going to start with the motivation on why we are talking about this today. What is the state of the art? What are some code generation strategies that we have today versus tomorrow that will be like macros, hopefully. Then we're going to deep dive like more in macros, how they work in Dart. And yeah, just wrapping it up with some conclusions and next steps. So yeah. Okay, so the motivation for the talk today was, macros is a really new feature that was announced at Google I/O this year, back in May. There was a really nice blog introducing Dart 3.4. So yeah, as the blog says, this is one of the major roadmap items for the Dart language this year, especially. So even though it's not going to be fully released in this year, they said like beginning next year it's going to be fully released. I think that it's worth like talking about it because it's going to be a major change in the way we develop our apps, right? So yeah, this is like back like some years ago. There was always this feeling that we needed like more support for data classes, because in our daily basis, basically we are dealing with our projects, and all of our classes are commonly repeated. Like there are some patterns that are, for example, the equals to string or things like to JSON or from JSON are always the same. So there was always this necessity of dealing with repeated code and how to be more effective in this sense. Also, the way the static metaprogramming is something that community has loved a lot, and it's really related because one of the ways that we commonly do that is by adding annotations into our code. So yeah, in case you don't know metaprogramming, I mean, as a term, because maybe you have used it, it's just it refers to the code that operates on another code. And commonly what we have in our ecosystem right now is Build Runner. That is like a more closer thing to metaprogramming. But these things are also implemented in the language itself, in for example, other languages. So that's why macros could be really the next thing for Dart. So we can follow the same direction as other languages. Then, of course, we have like other announcement on Dart 3.5, like giving more following ups to this topic. So you can, I mean, the motivation is like behind this is like a really recent thing, and we should be prepared for next year. Also, there were the updates of the macros, but there were also libraries being developed so far. The most, maybe the most famous one was like from the R team, the JSON one. That is basically to, it's a macro that can let you do from JSON and to JSON. So it would be like the replacement in a way for JSON serializable with build runner. But there are also some other cool libraries that are being developed right now. For example, data class. Actually, both of them are called data class, but the one at the bottom like is mostly focusing on trying to automate or generate things like copy width or toString, or maybe having the equitable, so you don't have to write all of these things, and hopefully you reduce the amount of code. And also the data class on top will be like rewriting the freeze library. So yeah, if you have used it, the freeze library like generally generates a lot of code. So this will be like the first attempt to replace for an implementation using macros. So what is the state of the art for me? I mean, always talking about Dart and Flutter, I feel like there are like two major things that we commonly do, at least in my experience. For example, code generation back with build runner is the most common one, and maybe it's really tedious because there are some cons on doing this, but at the end of the day it makes the jobs easier. There's also a library called Mason that is not strictly code generation, but it can be used with the same goals that we use, for example, build runner, right? But it's not the same. We're going to talk about some differences, and hopefully, like we will have macros implemented, and that will be like the way we go from now on, right? So. Just to recap how code generation works, and yeah, just to set the mood for macros. This is an example like having a user class, something really common on every project. Maybe you have to define a user class, and you suddenly realize that you need to add a lot of things, such as, for example, extending equitable. You only wanted to like have a user class, let's say with a username, and then you start adding annotations, adding, for example, JSON annotation, and you have to reference a generated file that is not already created. Then you have like the toJSON method that is referencing another method that currently doesn't exist. Then you have to define your props for the equitable, and suddenly your user class that it was something simple, only have like a username. It has a lot of things to worry about. Even though it's something we are used to and familiar, like it tends to grow, right? So basically, apart from that, we need to like add dependencies, JSON annotation, build runner, JSON serializable, some of them in depth dependencies, some of them in dependencies. So yeah, code generation current process is, for this particular case, is creating a Dart class with part file referencing the generated file. Then we need to constantly, the first time we need to do Flutter pub run build runner, and with so we can build the whole generation. Hopefully we can have it on background, like watching the changes, but yeah, then we need to wait a few seconds until the code generation ends, and then we need to like modify the files and repeat the process, or maybe have something watching in background. But yeah, it's more or less like tedious to do this thing. And at the end of the day, we have like a generated file that is, in some cases, is not so easy to approach. But yeah, in general, we shouldn't modify this by hand. And if there is an error, it's going to be because of the library itself, right? So yeah. This is how build runner works. The code generation tends to grow and get slower with time. We experience like in every project that we have a lot of generation happening that is really useful, but yeah, it tends to get lower and lower. And there were a couple of times where we decided to not spend or not include as many generative libraries as needed because of this problem, right? Yet they're easy to modify and rerun it if we want it, so that's cool. And yeah, the whole code base tends to grow as well because we have like duplicated files that are generated. And yeah, we have to add extra dependency to our project, to all of our packages if we are using this, right? So these are like some considerations. And in case of Mason, I feel like, yeah, it's not like strictly the same, but it's kind of an approach that we can do for achieving this, like at the end of the day, reducing the amount of code that we write. But the thing is that it works differently because we have to define a template. Inside that template, we need to specify some parameters that are going to be replaced whenever we run the Mason make command. So basically, we need to start from a template. Then we can automate writing this class, and the class will be replacing, in this case, the name of the class that could be user, right? But yeah, there are some cool things that you can do with Mason because you can include some pre-generation and post-generation things along the way. But yeah, it's not kind of the best experience because unless you have like more and more things to check in your brick, it's not going to work in all cases. And also, it's a different way because it doesn't use annotations to generate code. It's like it's part from a template and then generates code. So yeah, the process will be roughly to create a Dart class from a Mason brick. I mean, Mason could be used for creating any file, but if we use it for this particular case, we'll create it from a Mason brick. And then we'll run Mason make, and finally we'll be able to generate a class, right? Then we will wait till the code generation ends, possibly it will be short or longer based on if we have like some hooks into Mason, into the brick. I don't know if you guys have used like this type of tools. I know like my first question was like if you use macros, but in terms of Mason or build run, I think that if you would like to raise your hands, I feel like everyone had used it, right? Okay. Yeah, so Mason is faster than build runner unless you use hooks to like pre-gen or post-gen to the template. That could eventually be longer, but it's easy to use as well, and it's a different approach because, as I said, we are not introspecting the code with annotations, and it doesn't add code gen files to our code base unless we use Mason to like generate files that will be used then for build runner, right? The cool thing is that it has a great community in sharing bricks because yeah, you can find a brick for everything right now, and I think that this is really important because I imagine like having the same for macros in the future. So yeah, how can we do better, right? Because these are like the current ways we deal mainly with code gen. So yeah, what macros are, right? So the definition from the documentation is that a Dart macro is a user-definable piece of code that takes in other code as parameter and operates on it on real time to create, modify, or add declarations. So the cool thing here is it operates on real time. We're going to see in a demo how it works, but it's going to affect drastically how like the amount of time we spend like dealing with code generation itself. So yeah, it's currently under development. That doesn't mean that we can play around in prepare ourselves for when it's going to be released next year. So yeah, what will be like the motivations to create macros? So basically, will be enhance the language productivity because we will have like less boilerplate, and that will be easier to maintain, of course. Also, the way it works, it improves the performance and the code size because we don't have to create some other generated files. And ultimately, it improves the developer experience because, yeah, this is like really important because, yeah, the way we work right now, yeah, using Build Runner, maybe you spend like a couple of seconds on each change and you don't realize that at the end of the day you might spend like a lot of time and everything counts. So that doesn't mean that we can do better. So I think that this is going to let us focus on other more interesting part of our developer experience. So what are some of the use cases I see like in macros? Of course, like we named two of them, like the most obvious one, I guess, JSON serialization, for example, or data classes. That will mean that we could have as part of our classes, like, yeah, commonly things such as copy width or toString or equitable. But yeah, in terms of what we can build, I guess that everything that is packed on Build Runner could be like a potential replacement. But yeah, something that is repetitive, like it's easy to abstract, that we've done so many times in our project, and it's not bringing so much value to like copy and paste. So yeah, I think like there's a big space for this, and for me, like in the backend in Dart, because some of the frameworks out there, such as Dartfrog, Serverpod, are using also CodeGen behind the scene, and there's a lot of this validation pipelines or middlewares that could be implemented using macros, and yeah, it would be like the perfect developer experience for developing in the backend. I've used like other frameworks as well in other languages that have this approach of having annotations, and that would be like the perfect use case for me. But also, yeah, in the front end, in Flutter, kind of like trying to reduce the amount of boilerplate needed. For example, the stateful widget was one of the things that the Flutter team suggests to replace with a macro, so we don't have to create two classes and yeah, hopefully like define a stateful or stateless as a macro, and everything is going to be more cleaner. So yeah, but yeah, I think that anything that you can think that is repeated in your developer experience, you can try to think if it's worth to create a macro for that, or eventually if it's not going to be something available. Okay, so for the demo, I'm going to show like the demo that was running in Google I/O, just so we can, in case you haven't like seen it or you haven't tried it, so you can have like some insights on how this works. So maybe I can zoom in a little bit, right? Okay. Okay, so this is like a Dart package. It's a console application. It's not even like a Flutter app because it's a Dart feature. But of course, if you plan to use it in Flutter, you can like import the pure Dart package or start using it even in a Flutter module. So here, the first thing that we need to do is to include JSON macros. We're going to use the macro called JSON. Then we're going to see how it is implemented behind the scene. But the thing that we want to achieve now is have a user class. And for example, let's say we start with a name. And the only thing that we need to provide to the class is this annotation that is called JSON codable. So that's the first difference. Like it's really clean the way we need to use this. And behind the scenes, we are going to see that, for example, if we run a main program, here we have like a user JSON in a JSON format, and suddenly we realize that we already have like from JSON and to JSON as part of our user class, and we didn't need to write anything of this, right? So let's try to run this. I'll run. Then, well, if we write this, you're going to see that it's not going to work because this is currently under development. So what we should do is to enable this experiment. So this is like a flag that we should add like so far till now, and then in the future, of course, it's going to be replaced. But if we run it, we see that we are able to print the user in two JSON formats. So we were able to serialize and deserialize the user. So this is kind of cool because we didn't have, of course, to write other things. We didn't have to run build runner, and for example, if I made a change here and put, let's say we put an email, and we go back to the example and we add the email, this is going to work as well. So the whole experience is kind of like seamless. And one thing that I forgot to mention is that we also have to enable the experiment in the analyzer, so it doesn't warn us for things that yeah, around macros. But if we want to see like how this is working, we notice that there's a VS Code extension to kind of understand what is happening behind the scene. And if we go to the augmentation class and we put it like in both sides, we see that this will be, at first we have like the augment new keyword. This will mean that it will augment the user base class and will add the methods that are like part of the macro. But the cool thing, this will be basically us having the generated file in our build runner library, right? And the cool thing is that if we start adding more properties, let's say that my age, this is happening in real time, and we can see that we don't have to like wait to the, for example, in build runner, that we need to wait till the generative library analyze all of the code to generate the class. So I think that this is like a really great developer experience. And actually we don't have to also modify this class yet. It doesn't have like the comment on not modify this by hand, but this is going to be manipulated by the Dart VM, so it's not necessary that we touch anything here, but it's in my opinion like really readable. It's not like we don't understand anything there, but this is in a nutshell how the current experience is working so far. So some of the things that I also wanted to mention is, for example, if we go to the JSON library, because behind the scenes we needed to import the library that was called JSON, so someone has to wrote that as, for example, JSON serializable, someone did. But the way macros work is slightly different because there are we're not going to have like so much time to explain how they work like deep dive, but essentially they work in three phases. We have the type definition, the declaration definitions, and based on what you want to do, you are going to be able to, on each phase, be limited to provide some implementations on what you want to do. But there's a new keyword that is called macro, where you will be able to define your macro. Then you will have to implement some interfaces such as class declaration macro or class definition macro. This basically, whether it will depend on where the macro is going to operate, because it's not limited to classes. We're seeing that in this example we're using user class, but it could be used, for example, for a function. In this case, basically there are two methods mainly. We have build declaration for class and build definition for class. And inside those methods, we are going to actually implement what we want to build. So I think that in the majority of the cases, we are not able, we don't have to know how it's working under the hood, because probably we are not going to create a lot of macros. This will be essentially as like packages authors that are writing for build runner will be the same for macros. But it's interesting because as are good opportunities right now to explore this the macros and try to hopefully come up with new ideas for packages. The way they are structured are like pretty much the same for every macro. So in the documentation it's really well explained. This is like only touching the surface of how they work. Okay, so maybe if we go to the slides again. Okay, something that we didn't mention is that macros could be everywhere in our code, so there's clearly has to be like an order of execution. Let's say we have a class that have three annotations in the same class, and that will be the order of the execution. They're going like inner first, outer last. That the reason behind that is will be like so we can read it right to left, but yeah, this could be it's important because macros might be there might be some merge conflicts if we don't care about the order of the execution. Then other thing that I was mentioning earlier in the JSON library is the phases of execution of the macro. So this is really important, especially when writing a macro, because imagine that all of the macros in our code base are coexisting, and if something goes wrong, it's going to be an inconsistent state from my previous code base. So what the Dart team came out with was defining 3 different phases. The first one was the types phase. In here, we are able to declare new types and ensure that all top-level names are known. So basically, it's a way in we can like let the program knows like these are the new types available, but we are not going to have conflicts in this phase. So we have like limited flexibility here to do some introspection, mainly to avoid conflicts. But then when we are in the second phase, we are able to declare members, variables, and methods. So here is when the real stuff happens, and we are going to basically be able to add some methods like to JSON from JSON. We can introspect the type members and class hierarchies. We have access right now to, because all of the types were declared previously, we have access to the hierarchy. This is when the magic happens, right? And lastly, the definitions, we are able to generate the actual code for methods or fields. And in here, we have full introspection power to access complete type information. Okay, so as part of the conclusions and next steps, I feel like macros represent an incredible step forward for the Dart language. I feel like this is, in other languages this has been implemented, but I haven't seen like this approach with this developer experience that is happening in real time, and the way it's flexible enough so that we can also write our own macros in a really easy way and share it with as a package. So I think it's going to drastically change how we use code generation across all of our code bases. For example, in my company, we're running like more than 20 ongoing projects. So I think that we are going to start seeing how we can change all of our code bases to start supporting macros. And that will be like a major improvement for all of our development. Maybe it's not as big as the change that we experienced with null safety, but it's kind of like compared to that, because null safety also was a big change that we need to migrate and refactor a lot of the code base and really impacts in all of the classes. Maybe this is only replacing the things that we are relying on code gen or annotations. But certainly there's some work to do in order to migrate to macros. But at the end of the day, it's like the way we should move forward, because it's going to be more efficient and it's going to provide like more benefits in the long run. We should expect like next year migration in order to update code bases. In the meantime, I highly suggest, for example, to start using it in some projects, try to see like how they work, hopefully as well there is a great opportunity to come up with new ideas, new packages idea. If you have like haven't been able to create a package and you think, okay, this is a perfect idea to maybe I don't know, like either migrate a current package that is built on top of Build Runner or using Build Runner and migrate to macros, or maybe came up with a macro that wasn't possible or it wasn't so convenient to use with Build Runner because it was something really short to write, right? But I think that there's a great opportunity to try it out and come up with packages ideas. Then as the next steps, I was saying like I think that there's enough documentation right now. There are the blogs that were released by our team, but also there's a really cool documentation that is experimental, but is really complete in the official docs. And also one of my colleague, he has done also a talk on macros in Dart, but it's in Spanish, so you can check it out. It's part of the Google I/O extended macros in Dart. And also there was a really cool observer Flutter rewriting freeze with macros. This was done by Craig and Remy, and in this live they went through the process of rewriting the freeze package with macros, the challenges, how it's going to change. Also, it was really cool because they also mentioned how to test macros. That is not something so intuitive. It's not like testing, for example, in a project with unit tests or widget tests. It's a different way to testing because you are testing how code generation is going to work based on your annotations. So yeah, in this live, they deep dive in the process of creating the macro and the challenges. We don't mention like some of the things around macros today, but yeah, it's a really large topic and a really cool one. And yeah, I think that as a next steps, that would be really cool. So yeah, thanks for having me here. And these are my social networks. It was really cool to talk about this topic. I think that it's really recent, but certainly it's going to be something that all of us will remember like next year, because yeah, it's going to happen and it's going to affect like the way we develop. So yeah, thanks.